All right, so let's begin creating flexible content review pathways. So in this micro lesson, we are going to look at some of those different formats that you all expressed interest in learning about. We'll also talk a little bit about organizing content meaningfully, and we'll look at mirroring the course outline, maybe the syllabus or some other way that you've already told students how the course is organized. We'll look at how to mirror that in the learning management system and other environments. We're doing this because students face various limitations related to the format of the files, the file sizes that we provide students. And so we need to be more conscious of what we're creating and how we're providing it. We'll look at different strategies and then we'll complete an activity. So universal design for learning principles tell us a couple different things. They suggest adding course material versions in alternate formats. So for example, Michael Wesch, a faculty member at Kansas State University, he records himself reading the journal articles he assigns throughout the term. He does this to support students who need accessibility accommodations for sure, but he also does it to support students who benefit from flexibility accommodations. Some students want to review content when it's not convenient to read, such as when they commute to campus on bicycles, public transportation, or when they are washing dishes after putting the kids to bed. They can still review the content for the course and accomplish another task or move through space. Regardless of the many reasons that students have for wanting flexibility, creating multiple versions of content supports them. It may even just support their preferences for how they consume material. So what are some ways that we can do that? Well, saving audio or video as text. So for this institute, I created the scripts first, which is usually not the way I work, but I did it so that I could support people who wanted to use the materials and run with it. If you create scripts for your pre-recorded lectures, you can share those scripts as a transcript. You can do what I did and put them in the notes field for the PowerPoint or Google Slides. And if you're less formal, you can use your video conference tool auto caption feature to convert your presentation to a text file. There are also third-party tools like otter.ai, which is an audio transcription service. Every month, you can get 600 minutes of video converted to text for free. So if you don't have a captioning service in your video conference solution that allows you to do that, then you can take the recording and run it through the audio transcription service. Next, we can save our text as audio. So like Michael Wesch, you can record yourself reading your own documents or text passages that you assign to students. If you don't have the time or wherewithal to do that, you can use a free online tool like Google Cloud's text-to-speech, or tell your students that they can add tools like the Natural Reader's text-to-speech app to Chrome for free. So again, if you want students to be able to consume text as an audio format, there are different ways to do that. Last, saving video as audio. So after you record a lecture like we're doing now, this little micro lesson, you can download and share an audio only version along with the video. So this benefits students who have low bandwidth connections, students who commute or who want to listen to the lecture while exercising. It does imply some of those strategies that we're going to discuss later about how we deliver our lectures and to consider the different formats people may be consuming. But these are different ways to create different content modalities without too much trouble.
Kevin?
Yes.
This is Leslie, really fast. Just want to note to everybody here that 21 of the 23 campuses are using Ally product that's embedded in your LMS, and it will generate an audio file of all the texts that are uploaded to the LMS, I should say, for the most part. So just as an aside, that's already being done for you, for your students by Ally, if your campus has Ally. So just want to share that.
Brilliant. Thank you for bringing that up, and then very timely. So
Yeah. And I'll look
well,
for a link to that info really fast. I can't, Emma, so thank you.
thanks.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No worries. All right. So not only do we have to think about alternate content formats, but we also have to think about the content itself and how can we streamline it for our students. So with students participating in different modalities on different devices, it becomes important to create the path of least resistance. For example, students who only have access to smartphones will have a hard time downloading or viewing certain files if they don't have an app or if they're huge. Students who have low bandwidth will have a hard time downloading large files like videos or presentations with massive graphics. And I know for some fields like anatomy, some fields like engineering, where you might have complex schematics, you may inflate the file size of the different things that you're showing. So the questions will be, is there a way to create a lightweight version for students to get the general idea, and then something that's much more detailed that they can review separately so that they can, again, keep moving forward with their limitations based on access to devices, internet connectivity, or more. So the three strategies I have for streamlining content, and they're not the only ones, they're just the three that I have on this slide. One, reduce the file size. So pay attention to your files. I usually look to see, are the files I create bigger than a megabyte? If they are, then what can I do to reduce it? Microsoft Office, Adobe Acrobat Pro allow you to reduce the file size, but that's at the end of the process and can only do so much. When you're saving it, you can optimize or reduce it. So if you're using images in your presentations or documents, make sure the images you use are small to begin with. The pictures we take on our phones usually are very large. So you can take them into Photoshop or find a simple way to make it smaller. If you're using Macintosh and you use Photos, their app, you can save or export an image as a low resolution image so that it takes up smaller file size. If you're using online image galleries like Unsplash, like the picture pictured here, or PX here, usually give you an option to download different file sizes. So I go with the smallest file whenever possible. And if you think about, even Google Slides load faster when images have small file sizes. I've noticed when I put images over a megabyte in Google Slides, sometimes I'm not able to edit those Google Slides until I remove it and replace it with a smaller version. Also allowing streaming. So we don't want to force students to download media. So we want to allow them to play whatever we're asking them to review from their device. This may mean embedding the media on a content page, or like I said, providing multiple versions, a video file, an audio file, and so on. And then last, using web-friendly formats. If students are not going to be editing what you produce, then you can convert Microsoft Office files to PDF or save as a Google Doc or both. And this supports learners who want to review the content through a browser. Next, we want to talk a little bit about organizing our content. And once we've created all these multiple versions, we have to manage them all, right? So it's helpful for students if they don't have to sort through a long list of items to find what they want. And so a couple different ways that you can do that. One is to use the modules or topic areas in your learning management system to put a box around what you want students to review and do each week. And that structure can help you organize your course content. It also helps students see everything that they're supposed to do. If you do what I talked about in previous micro lessons, turn on the activity completion, then they'll even get a little check mark after they've completed certain activities. Another way to deal with multiple versions of files, this is what I do in my own course, is I just have a folder. And so that students can go in and they can pick the video, the downloadable slides or the Google Slides, any handouts. They can pick the ones that they want. It's up to them. If you run into storage limits in your learning management system because some of your files are large again and they need to be large, then there might be an online storage service, OneDrive for Microsoft campuses, Google Drive for Google campuses. Some campuses use Box or Dropbox. And so those allow you to create digital pathways to access the materials. And then for accessibility purposes, but also for flexibility purposes, we want to use descriptive links. We want to differentiate each link by including useful information like week 2 Civil War mini lecture video, week 2 Civil War mini lecture audio, week 2 Civil War mini lecture transcript. So you get the idea. The goal being that we're not only helping our students with screen readers, but we're helping students make a quick analysis of which file they want to click and move on with. So organizing our environments at a course level scale can involve a number of different strategies as well. You may have noticed that in this institute, we use a numbering system. We have module 1, and then the micro lessons are 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So it's consistent, but also implies that there's a sequence, that they're slightly different. And the activities that go with them, there's the lecture 1.1 and activity 1.1. So you can create a system where students know where they are and where they're supposed to be. Some people use the outline method, 1A, 1B, 1C, that kind of thing. And others might use it based on the weeks of the semester or the chapters of the book. So whatever, again, structures you have at your disposal or makes the most sense logically for you to use with your students, there you go, use that. The other thing I'd say is be consistent. So rather than just dumping all your files into a folder every week, make sure that you name them in a way that they'll show up in the same order each week. So if you're going to do what I talked about in the last slide, where you're going to have your audio, your transcript, and your video, those will be the order alphabetically that they'll show up: audio, transcript, video. And so if it's consistent, students know to click the second link, the third link, because that's the one that they choose to use each week. If you're familiar with some of the research, though, Michelle Pacansky-Brock did some research with her students, asking them which they preferred: reading the material, listening to her extended podcast, which had slides and audio. And a lot of students did both, or they toggled between the two, depending on where they were and what they were doing. So just because you think students may be picking one file type to consume each time, the answer is about 40% probably are mixing it up. Sometimes it's important to consider whether or not students can have early access, at least to the materials, maybe not the activities, but students may know that they have a work trip coming up, or they may know that their students, their own children are going to be out of school on a break that doesn't line up with your campus's spring break or Thanksgiving break or what have you. So they may want to get ahead with the reading so that they don't fall behind on that week when they're not going to have as much time. Maybe it's possible for you to provide early access to the content without providing early access to the activities, or maybe the activities too, depending on your course. I already talked a little bit about mimicking your syllabus structure or other structures that your students will see, because that will make it consistent and easy for them to find things. And then we'll use the Gestalt principle of proximity. If you're a designer, if we group things together, and when we organize our course, students will associate things that are grouped together as one set of activities that they're supposed to do. So even using things like line breaks, or even just a paragraph break in between different groupings, will help students associate this block of 3 bullets or this set of items to do first, and so on. All right, so I've been yammering on for a couple minutes now. It's your turn to do some work. And the last time we'll touch this backward design worksheet. And I know, I think it was Faith yesterday or Tuesday asked if we could put together an example fully filled out. And that's something I'm working on, and I'll make sure to share it in the Slack environment and via an announcement. But pull out that backward design worksheet that you've been working on so fastidiously, and think about some strategies that you want to use for content review. And if you have some in mind, you can use the chat to share them, or you can raise your hand and say, this is what I'm thinking. Questions are welcome as well. And I just noticed that there's a copy and paste error on this slide, so I'll fix that before releasing the slides into the wild. I'm interested to know if anybody in the room has some immediate reaction like, oh, I could do that with my content based on the different ideas that I shared. Go ahead and pop it in the chat real brief if you have something that you think, oh, I could reduce my file size, or I could start organizing my learning management system environment a little differently. Give you about one more minute to think through that, and then we'll move on to the next micro lesson. So Lalita mentions that she's been organizing the materials in her course related to the type. So all the lectures are in one area, all the homework is in another, all the quizzes are in a third place, all the videos in a fourth, and so on. This is a logical structure, and a lot of instructors use it. And so the challenge is, are there times when students might miss something because they didn't know that this week there is no quiz, or this week there is 2 homeworks instead of 1? So is there at least some place where you list all of the items and maybe link to them so that they can go to one place and kind of work sequentially through, I'm supposed to review the lecture, then I take the quiz, then I watch this video, then I do the homework. So having some way to organize these materials that are sorted and stored in a very logical way, but how do they know what to do in week 3? How do they know what to do in week 5?
That is usually I put that in syllabus. There is a schedule.
There you go. So the syllabus.
So, and I have typically, I always have my quizzes on Saturday. They have to take it at home, and homeworks are always due on Sundays. So they know the days when they are due.
There you go.
So, but other than that, you have a really good point there. If I have some additional assignments for them, say, for example, reading, then that could be an issue.
So it may just be a simple act like we've done in this institute, where you have an overview page for each week, so that you can update it as you go and say, hey, I found a new resource for you, so I'm going to add it to the overview page for week 17 and move forward. But you can keep everything where it is and just link to it.
Right.
Barbara says she organizes course by week and then separates the content with a label: watch, read, listen, investigate. I like those one-word action verbs. And then another label titled submit. Nice. Yeah, I like review, then do is what I put in my class, but I like the watch, read, listen, investigate. Great. All right, well, we finished this micro lesson, but you don't have to stop asking questions about it. I am going to stop the recording for our asynchronous friends, and then we'll start up micro lesson 4.2.